Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr., and welcome to my first ever top 10 worst of list. I didn't do one last year, but this year I thought, as much as I don't like to talk about stuff that I don't like because why spread negativity around because there's enough of it out there already in the world, I got to admit, as a movie fan, I enjoy watching other people's top 10 worst of lists as much as I love watching their top 10 best of lists. And so, I thought, what the hell? Why not put my little 2 cents in there? So here is my top 10 worst movies of 2023. And I will be following this up with a video of my top 10 best of the year. And, if you want to go ahead and give me your suggestions or your opinions in the comment section of what would be on your list, please go ahead and put it down. And, please just remember I didn't watch every single movie that came out last year. I tend to watch movies that I want to watch that I think I'll like. And so if there's something that I don't like that really pisses me off because I was just hoping it would be the opposite, that's usually the stuff that kind of ends up on a list like this. And so please keep that in mind. A lot of these movies are, you know, okay maybe for some people, but for me, these are the ones that I just don't want to watch ever again. My number 10 movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I'm a big fan of the Marvel movies. I enjoyed the first two Ant-Man movies. I think that Paul Rudd is a lot of fun as the character of Stephen Lang slash Ant-Man. But this was just a very underwhelming movie. Watching this in the theater, I remember thinking there was a lot of potential with this storyline of our main characters trapped in the quantum realm, having an adventure there, and the way they were building up Jonathan Majors' character of Kang the Conqueror. But ultimately, it didn't live up to the hype because what they did with it was not that exciting. It just felt like there was so much potential there with that kind of storyline and that kind of a villain that you're building up. And when the big climax at the end doesn't really live up to that hype because you just have a scene where Ant-Man gets the shit kicked out of him basically and he somehow wins because he's supposed to. It just feels like a very generic, run of the mill, paint by numbers type of Marvel movie in the end. Number 9 on my list, I regret to say, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of I Don't Give a Shit because this movie shouldn't have been made in the first place. I really didn't think that I could dislike a Indiana Jones movie more than I already disliked Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I have to admit, at first I was on board with the movie because I was really enjoying myself with the prelude to everything else, but after that opening sequence, which is really cool to see a de-aged Harrison Ford done for the most part pretty good, even though some shots it looked not so good. You just can't buy it when you see him throw a punch. He's too old. Not many actors can pull it off being the aging action hero. And Harrison Ford, for a long time, was pulling it off, but at the age of 80, you just gotta know when to call it quits. I didn't really care for the character in the movie that was his sidekick, that goddaughter lady that was kind of a bitch for the most part to him throughout the movie. And then at the end, she has this turnaround, supposed to have this big character arc that doesn't work because she spends too much time in the movie being a jerk to him, and by the time she has this big come around, it's just not believable, and the whole time travel thing just didn't work for me. Number 8 on my worst movies of 2023 list, The Meg 2. The first movie was definitely executed better in my opinion and just better written because here the character that Statham plays in the first one he was like this rescue guy and now he's all of a sudden this badass that has all the talent that Jason Statham has that we all know he has from watching his Transporter movies. And so in this one, they let him go full on Transporter, but just add in the shark element. They have him doing some impossible shit in this movie. Like he's actually at one point stabbing a giant shark and it's actually in the air and it's like at an angle because he's like lifting it as he's stabbing it. And that fucking weight of the shark would just crush a man, especially somebody like Jason Statham. I don't care how strong you are, but it's a movie, so we're just expected to think, oh, he can do that. No, you can't. My number 7 on this list, Cocaine Bear. I enjoy a good horror comedy. The premise seemed fun and simple enough. The scenes with the bear and the bear attacks, which used a lot of CGI, just kind of took me out of the movie because whenever I see animals that are done with CGI and you're supposed to be scared of whatever the threat is, if it's a CGI threat, usually I'm not really gonna be affected by it in terms of my viewing experience because it doesn't feel tangible enough for me to really latch on any kind of emotion or get excited or anything like that. So yeah, CGI always a minus in terms of stuff like this. If you have some kind of animatronic or put in a real bear every now and then, just kind of mix it up, kind of mix and match that footage, add some more practical effects in there. That kind of thing might have won me over, but a CGI bear, bland, forgettable characters. Number six of my worst of movies of 2023, You People. The idea of a romantic comedy about an interracial couple where you have the male in the couple seeking approval of the father, that's nothing new. It goes back to the classic 1967 Guess Who's Coming to Dinner film, which is one of the greatest films ever made. And so I do think that premise could be done nowadays and done well. If you could do it in the 60s, why not today? And when you have someone like Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill, why can't it be good? And another thing, it's supposed to be a comedy. Why can't it be funny? I personally get excited whenever I sit down to watch Eddie Murphy in a movie, and the idea of him teaming up with Jonah Hill felt like it could have been a fun time, but because he's mainly the straight man to Jonah Hill being the Jonah Hill persona from so many of his other movies, movies that are better, this feels like a real misfire. And they don't give Murphy enough to do. They give most of the funny stuff to Jonah Hill, which isn't all that funny at all. Since it is a romantic comedy, it follows a lot of those standard cliches that you get out of a movie like this, where even though the two characters have their problems, you know it's going to work out because in the end, the couple has to get together. And so, no matter how much Eddie Murphy's character dislikes the character played by Jonah Hill in this movie, you know that he's going to warm up to him eventually, as spoiler alert, he does. And so, yeah, there's nothing new here. In the number five spot of my top 10 worst movies of 2023, I very much wanted to like this movie because I'm a big fan of this franchise, but Scream 6, this movie sucked in my opinion. It had some good moments. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed some of the scenes involving some of the kills, even though so many of the kills weren't really kills because that's one thing that pissed me off. Characters wouldn't stay dead. And when it comes to a horror movie, if the characters keep coming back to life, then where are the stakes? You know, Scream 2 had that great death. Spoilers for Scream 2, talking about Randy, a character that a lot of people were happy that he survived the first movie. So the idea that he came back and got killed in the second movie made you think, as an audience member, anyone can go. The Scream movies down the line seem to have lost that. When you get to the sixth movie and they keep letting characters come back to life just because they're popular, yeah, I tend to check out. I didn't like the end of the movie when it comes to the big reveal of the killer and the motivation. It felt recycled from a previous movie in terms of a Ghostface out for revenge from a previous Ghostface, which had been done before. And after that mask comes off, we get a very hammy, very cartoony performance by one of the main Ghostface. Spoilers, there's more than one. For me personally, this just feels very disappointing because this had the potential to be the best Scream movie ever with the kind of setup it had with a New York setting. The opening scene was very strong. I like the bodega scene, the rooftop escape, the subway scene, all good stuff. I am glad that there are people out there that got what they wanted out of this movie and do enjoy it, but for me, it just doesn't stick to landing. Yeah, no, get that shit out of here. It's not for me, sorry. So, yeah, number five, Scream 6. Moving on to number four. Again, Eddie Murphy strikes again, Candy Cane Lane. Another movie that could have been a lot better considering the premise was kind of fun in terms of having the 12 days of Christmas come to life and threatening to turn Eddie Murphy into a little toy figurine. I understand we're talking about a family holiday comedy, but even those can be funny. Just look at Home Alone or Elf or A Christmas Story as proof of what can be done with the right people behind it. And Eddie Murphy is a funny guy. He can be funny when he wants to be. When it comes to material like this, because it's not on the edgy side, he always is kind of toned down and watered down. And I just love it when he's kind of free to improvise and go off script. And you can tell in this movie he's very much sticking to the words on the page. Who's ever writing those words isn't doing him any credit, isn't doing a thing for him. We got Beverly Hills Cop 4 coming out pretty soon, and I probably should not be too excited about it, but that trailer gives me, those nostalgia vibes, and so I'll be there for it, and hopefully it's better than this piece of crap. But yeah, this movie, my number four. Number three on this list is another Netflix comedy. This one stars Adam Sandler. I'm talking about Murder Mystery 2. Not one single laugh throughout this entire movie. I'm just sitting there thinking, come on, man, you're Adam Sandler. Make me laugh. Do something funny. Nope, not once. Well, I think one time I did smile, but It was a bit of dialogue that, kind of put a little bit of a smirk on my face because it gave me hope. And then, the movie kept going, and again, nothing. I am a fan of Sandler's work, and when he wants to be funny, he's one of those actors that can make me laugh. But with material like this, just not gonna happen, especially when it feels like he's sleepwalking through the film and like he's there to just collect another paycheck. And if you're gonna make a comedy, then make it funny. Bring back some of your old compadres that you kind of peppered in to kind of support you, because some of his best work, we had those familiar faces like John Lovitz and Rob Schneider and Steve Buscemi that would always pop up every now and then and kind of just add to the comedy. Mark Strong is in here as a character that is pretty predictable in terms of what they do with the character in the final moments of the film, because after all, this is a mystery comedy, but the mystery part of the film is so obvious that what they do with Mark Strong's character isn't a surprise, and so you're just left thinking, I don't like this movie. Number two on my list, we have another Netflix Christmas comedy. And once again, it is not funny. Talking about best Christmas ever. I do like Jason Biggs. I do enjoy those early comedies from the late 90s and early 2000s that he was in. And so I thought, what the hell? I haven't seen him in a movie in a while. It's on Netflix. Let's give it a shot. And right about the 10-15 minute mark, I realized this movie doesn't feel like it was meant for Netflix. It felt like something that was written for the Hallmark Channel. All of the actors do a decent enough job, but the material that they have to work with really isn't much, since it's basically fluff. And so you got one cliche after another in terms of the relationship between the man and woman. It's kind of rocky, and there are hints that, there's trouble in paradise. What do you know? There was another movie I talked about on my list, Murder Mystery 2, where it was the same thing with that couple. There might be trouble in paradise, and will they work it out in the end? And of course, we know they're going to, because it's never really something that's bad enough that it's going to break them up, just enough, stuff to have them bicker every now and then so that we feel like there's some kind of conflict, even though there really isn't much of a conflict. The movie pretends to have it for a brief moment, but it doesn't matter, because even though Heather Graham's character gets found out for being a disrespectful snoop in somebody's house, again, the owner of the house is so forgiving because she's such a good and nice person, none of it matters. And so it's all fluff. It all just is meant to make you smile and be happy because it takes place around Christmas and you're supposed to just kind of roll with it. Maybe it's more for the Hallmark crowd. Maybe it's just not for me because I'm not the demographic. Whatever. A movie like this might be somebody else's security blanket, but for me, it just feels very disposable in terms of entertainment. And yeah, a movie I can definitely do without. That's why it makes my number two. Number one. Oh boy. I'm a big fan of horror movies, and I like the Pet Cemetery movies. They came out with a new one last year. Of course, went straight to streaming after watching the film. I can get why, because Pet Cemetery, Bloodlines, what a shitty movie. The gore in the movie, okay, thank you. I like gore. You're a horror movie. Thanks for doing that part of the job decent enough. Everything else in the movie, complete dog shit. This is a prequel to one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and they couldn't even match the timeline right in terms of, the original taking place in the late 80s. For some reason, this is the 60s, but the character of Judd Crandall, which is featured in the 89 classic Stephen King adaptation, he's like a 70 something year old guy there. So for him to be a guy that looks like he's in his 20s in the 60s, yeah, makes no sense whatsoever. Whenever I watch the original Pet Cemetery film from 1989, I always kind of have to emotionally brace myself, because there are things that happen in that movie that as a young kid scared the shit out of me, and as an adult, as a father, scare the shit out of me even more, to the point where on every rewatch I dread watching it, but I can't turn away because I enjoy getting that kind of fear, because not many movies can do that to me. This is one of those few movies that can scare the shit out of me, and it's genuine. It feels real, and because you have a new movie that has the name Pet Cemetery attached to it, I expect something more. I got nothing against the actor that played young Judd Crandall in this movie. Fred Gwynne is one of those actors that has a very distinctive way of speaking, so at the very least, I kind of expected the actor to try and do a Fred Gwynne type of, not voice, but at least the like accent or dialect or whatever. But whatever. You're gonna do your own thing, do your own thing. It's just gonna take me out of the movie all the more, though. Unfortunately, Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, you sucked. You're my number one. Congrats. So that's my list of my top 10 worst movies of 2023. Please look out for my top 10 best movies of 2023 list coming out very soon, and more classic movie reviews coming very soon as well. Thank you very much for watching this. I appreciate you. And don't forget to comment, like, share. All helps out the channel. If you're new to the channel, if you're into movies, hit that bell and subscribe if you're into this kind of thing. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support. I always appreciate it. And until next time, Happy New Year, everybody. God bless, be safe, and peace out.